In the early days of cinema, filmmakers dreamt of bringing color to the silver screen, seeking to elevate the art form beyond the limitations of black and white. These pioneers embarked on a journey fraught with challenges, yet fueled by boundless creativity and innovation. Amongst the first attempts to color film were hand-painted frames, where artists meticulously added color to individual frames with delicate brushes and dyes. While labor-intensive and time-consuming, this method allowed filmmakers to infuse their creations with vibrant hues and visual flair. Georges Méliès, the visionary French filmmaker, was amongst the first to experiment with hand-painted frames in his groundbreaking films such as A Trip to the Moon. His pioneering use of color added a sense of magic and wonder to his fantastical worlds, captivating the imagination of audiences around the world. Meanwhile, in America, Thomas Edison and his team were developing their own colorization techniques, including the use of tinting and toning to add subtle hues to the black and white film stock. They were able to achieve different color effects, albeit with limited fidelity. Films like D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation utilized tinting and toning to enhance their storytelling, with blue tones evoking night scenes and sepia tones lending a sense of nostalgia to historical sequences. But those cases were the exception. The truth is that in the early days of cinema, black and white reigned supreme. But in the 1930s, a revolutionary breakthrough emerged, changing the course of filmmaking forever. We can't talk about the history of color in motion pictures without talking about Technicolor. Hollywood 1935. The air was buzzing with excitement as filmmakers sought to push the boundaries of visual storytelling. Amongst them was Technicolor, a company that had been experimenting with color film for years. Herbert Kalmus were the masterminds behind the Technicolor process. Their goal? To bring vibrant colors to the silver screen, a feat that seemed impossible at the time. But convincing the industry to embrace this new technology was no easy task. Many viewed color as a gimmick, fearing it would overshadow the artistry of storytelling. Despite numerous setbacks, Kalmus persisted, refining their process until they achieved the breakthrough they had been searching for. Finally, in 1935, Technicolor made its grand debut with the release of Becky Sharp, the first feature-length film shot entirely in color. But before Becky Sharp, there was The Gulf Between, a silent film released in 1917 that utilized Technicolor's two-strip process. This process captured only two primary colors, red and green, resulting in a limited color palette. While The Gulf Between demonstrated the potential of color filmmaking, it also highlighted the limitations of the two-strip process. Colors appeared muted and lacked the vibrancy that would later become synonymous with Technicolor. The same went for other projects such as The Toll of the Sea in 1922 and The Black Pirate in 1926. The two-strip process had its pros and cons. On one hand, it allowed filmmakers to experiment with color in ways never before possible. On the other hand, it was limited in its color reproduction, often resulting in less than realistic results, compared to the three-strip process. Unlike later iterations of color film, which utilized a single strip of film, Becky Sharp employed a complex three-strip process. The same process was used in 1932 in the animated short Flowers and Trees. Each strip of film captured a different primary color, red, green, or blue. That's where we get RGB from. And these colors were then combined during the printing process to create the final image. Audiences were mesmerized by the film's stunning visuals, immersing themselves in a world brought to life like never before. Becky Sharp marked a turning point in cinematic history, paving the way for a new era of filmmaking. But the journey didn't end there. By the 1930s, Technicolor had perfected its renowned three-strip process, capturing a full spectrum of colors with unparalleled depth and clarity, ushering in a golden age of color cinema. Films like The Adventures of Robin Hood and The Wizard of Oz dazzled audiences with their vivid imagery. Technicolor transformed the way we experience films, filling projection rooms with color where it was available. The Wizard of Oz remains a timeless masterpiece of color filmmaking. So much so, many people still think it was the first color film in history. Its vibrant Technicolor palette transformed the fantastical world of Oz into an unforgettable visual spectacle, enchanting audiences for generations to come. However, not everyone was convinced of Technicolor's merits. Some industry insiders viewed color as a costly extravagance, fearing it would overshadow the storytelling itself. These skeptics questioned whether the added expense was worth the investment. Unlike their compact black and white counterparts, Technicolor cameras were massive complex contraptions that required more people to operate. Their size and weight made them cumbersome on set, posing logistical nightmares for directors and cinematographers. Also, compared to the black and white process, Technicolor required a lot more light to capture the images properly. Nowadays we have LED lights, but back then actual bulbs were used on set. That translated to a lot of heat. It could get up to 38 degrees Celsius or 100 degrees in freedom units, Fahrenheit. Sometimes actors and crew had to carry water with them to cope with the heat. And light bulbs used carbon arc technology, which emits a large portion of the UV spectrum, so it could possibly have caused permanent eye damage if stared directly into them. As Technicolor faced challenges in the later half of the 20th century, another player emerged onto the scene, poised to revolutionize color filmmaking. Eastman Kodak. With its innovative approach to single-strip color film, Kodak played a pivotal role in reshaping the landscape of cinema. Leveraging advancements in chemical engineering and film manufacturing, Eastman Kodak developed a range of single-strip color film stocks that offered filmmakers a simpler and more cost-effective alternative to Technicolor's complex processes. The first commercial feature film shot with Kodak's Eastmancolor was the documentary Royal Journey in 1951, although studios still waited a bit for an improved version of Eastmancolor. 100 titles were made using Technicolor in 1954, and only 50 titles were made in 1955, the last year Technicolor was used. Foxfire was the last American film that used Technicolor's 3-strip process. Another aspect that aided in the downfall of Technicolor was CinemaScope, since it wasn't compatible with Technicolor's cameras and lenses. But it also meant that they, Technicolor, became the best processor of Eastmancolor negatives. Funny enough, the dye transfer process was used for projection prints up until the 1970s in America and the 1980s in countries like Italy in Europe. The machines that made this process a reality were later dismantled and are now virtually impossible to set up again, unless someone is willing to foot the bill. That means that every single Technicolor print that we have today was made before these machines were shut down, and will stay as a relic of their time. One very cool aspect of Technicolor prints is that they don't fade like Eastmancolor film, which eventually turned pinkish. Technicolor prints to this day retain their vibrant colors and are paramount for the conservation and restoration of movies. The first film shot in CinemaScope was the 1953 film The Robe, which was originally intended to be shot in Technicolor. Later on, CinemaScope died too, and Panavision took its place. Around 1967, Fox began to abandon CinemaScope in favor of Panavision. The process with Panavision was much simpler, and it wasn't owned by a rival studio. Panavision cameras are still used to this day. Of course, not the old ones, but new versions of them. 2 nominees from the 96th Academy Awards were shot using Panavision's Panaflex, Past Lives, and Maestro. Directors and cinematographers eagerly embraced Kodak's new color film stocks, drawn to their ease of use and versatility. Films like 2001: A Space Odyssey, The Godfather, and Star Wars utilized Kodak film to capture their iconic imagery, showcasing the technology's ability to render vivid colors and lifelike detail. Directed by Stanley Kubrick, Francis Ford Coppola, and George Lucas, respectively, these films became cultural touchstones, demonstrating the power of Kodak color film to transport audiences to distant galaxies and mafia underworlds alike. Kodak's innovation and quality propelled it to the forefront of the industry, earning the trust and admiration of filmmakers around the world. Its color film stocks became the industry standard, replacing Technicolor as the go-to choice for color filmmaking. Even today, films are usually shot using Kodak's film stock. Films such as the 2016 La La Land used Kodak's Vision 3 500T, and the recent Academy Award winner, the 2023 Poor Things, was shot using Kodak's Ektachrome 100D. While Technicolor may have faded from the spotlight in recent decades, its legacy lives on in the hearts of filmmakers inspired by its timeless beauty. From directors emulating its iconic look in modern productions to restoration efforts preserving its cinematic treasures, Technicolor continues to influence the art of filmmaking to this day. The impact of the first Technicolor movie continues to be felt today, reminding us the power of innovation and the enduring magic of cinema. As always, thank you for watching. See you next time.